I'm Iris Muller. I'm a certified rehabilitation counselor and a proud mom of 2 children, one of whom has quadriplegic cerebral palsy and is nonverbal.
And I'm Alma Schneider, a licensed clinical social worker and the proud mom of 4 children, one of whom has Prader-Willi syndrome.
In this podcast, we discuss the uncensored truth about raising kids with disabilities.
Prepare to laugh, cry, and hopefully learn something new. This is Two Moms, No Fluff.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Two Moms, No Fluff, the podcast in which we discuss the uncensored truth about raising kids with disabilities. I'm Iris Muller, and with me is my partner, Alma Schneider. And today we have a very special guest with us, but I'll let Alma introduce our guest.
Okay, I get the pleasure of introducing Glen Parker because he's in my neighborhood. He's a community member. He is a lawyer at Parker Hansky LLC, where they deal with disability rights. So Glen, welcome. Thank you so much for coming today. We try to talk about, the parenting aspect of raising kids with disabilities, but we cannot do all that we need to do without people like you in our midst. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. It's really my pleasure to be on. And I think, honestly, what you guys do is great. There's a desperate need out there for this kind of information to be put out and, for people not to feel alone when they're going through this. And that's really where you come in and sort of where I come in as well. It's helping people and helping them get the resources that they need and getting the accommodations and modifications that they need. So pretty much my law practice is focused in the New York State area. Primarily, we do New York City, Westchester, and Long Island. What we do is we help the physically disabled get the accommodations that they need and modifications also that they need. So it goes in 2 phases, really, that our work. One is we represent a number of organizations with their missions, such as the Fair Housing Justice Center. So what they will do is they will send out testers, which for some people out there that don't know what a tester is, you may have heard, it used to be back in, years ago, they would send out one African-American couple to see if they can rent an apartment. And then after a day later, they'd send a Caucasian couple out to see if they can rent that apartment. And lo and behold, they get 2 different answers for the same building. That is what testing is. And it's to see if a building is complying with the law, because the law, as all of us know, prohibits that kind of discrimination. You can't make a choice based on race. Now, the law has been extended over the years to various other protections, and one of those is for the disabled community. So if a person has a physical disability, a developmental disability, any of those kind of things, those are protected. So a landlord cannot come in and see a family with a child who, let's say, has some sort of developmental disability that doesn't act within the spectrum of what they would consider normal. And they say, something, I don't want that kind of child around in our community here. That's not appropriate. It would be too much of a bother. So we're not going to allow that person, that family to enter. That's discrimination. And that's the kind of work that I do in terms of suing buildings to make sure that kind of stuff does not happen. Sometimes the building will have a policy, let's say, about emotional assistance animals. And there are, as we know now from the 2 wars that we've had, a lot of veterans have come back scarred mentally. And it doesn't show, when you look at them, they may look fine, but, they need that emotional assistance animal. And some buildings will have outright prohibitions saying no pets. And what you need to realize too about, the kind of with these kind of policies or hurdles that may run into is that what the law requires is that the landlord or the employer or the house or the business make an exception for the disabled to allow them to come into a into a space, and even though the disabled family may be breaking the rules, they need to make that exception in order for the disabled community to access it. One recent example that I just had is a family with a personal care assistant, which is, as many of you know, some families will have that for their child. And the personal care assistant was taking the child into the gym of the building to use the pool. And the building said, hey, you know something? You've got to pay. That personal care assistant is not a member. You've got to pay for that, for their membership. And that actually is not allowed. The law says that in order for that child to have the same enjoyment, they need that personal care assistant to be with them. It's an extension of themselves. So as long as the child is a member, the personal care assistant can come in. And the same thing actually was a big court case with a museum in Philadelphia, where they were trying to charge the personal care assistant, an extra fee to come in. And the court said, no, you have this all wrong. That person is part of the disabled person. Essentially, they're considered one because they're needed in order to use the place.
So that's
I know I kind of gave a long-winded answer, but I think with these examples that I've just given, they kind of explain the work that I do and try to help people out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I like what you're saying. Obviously my daughter is wandering around always with an attendant and a service dog. So it's
Yes.
all of those issues are issues that our family personally faced, including discrimination when we showed up to an apartment to try if the power wheelchair would fit in, and the owner of the apartment said, well, it's an old building, this is a too heavy wheelchair, we can't have you here, etc. That was way back in California. Never mind. I just want to kind of say that I think most of our listeners are probably listening to you and like, aha, you're giving us ammunition and a little bit more power in our advocacy. So I wanted to ask you, Glen, how did you become involved in law in the first place? Why did you even choose to become a lawyer?
Sure. I'd like to say that I had some profound moment growing up where I decided I wanted to be a lawyer, but it actually didn't happen like that. There's no, great Hollywood story here. It's, I graduated from college in 1991. At that point, there was a big recession. I wanted to, see if I could get a job that was I think at the time I wanted to be something in real estate, but I had no idea really what I wanted at age 22. And all my friends were going to law school at the time, my peer group, I should say. And so I decided to give it a try. It seemed, something good. I never really thought of myself actually as being a litigation lawyer, which is the kind of work that I do now. I always thought I'd be on the more business side. But I went to law school, and afterwards I started practicing. I went into a job, and I spent the first 10 years or 15 years really of practice on the defense side and doing litigation. And for some reason, litigation has come naturally to me. Maybe because, I grew up in a more conflict-oriented family, so conflict just came naturally to me, and I can understand it and see through it and work it. And so it's sort of, that dynamic, it's not something that, puts me off. I actually get energized by it, and it's a game. So that's really where I started. And it's something that, to my surprise, I actually like it. You may hear a lot of lawyers, oh yeah, I'm not crazy about it. And, it pays the bills. It's a, prestigious job. But for me, I actually enjoy what I do. As shocking as that, I never thought I was going to enjoy this as much as, because it is a game for me. While you hear that, you may think I don't take it seriously, but I kind of think about it like you need objectivity. Mm-hmm. For you as parents, you're involved in this day in, day out. It's very, very hard to be objective. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so when it's kind of like when I see a doctor or surgeons, and I hear surgeons talk about like they just see a body. They don't know who it is. They just see a body and they go to work. And for me, I look at, a lot of times it's the work I do with, the cases are just individual cases. And so like I can look at them without all the drama and the emotion involved and see, all right, how am I getting from point A to point B and getting the results I need without, the feelings of hostility and the feelings of needing to, some people want to inflict pain on the other side. And, you just try to push all that stuff aside and say, listen, at the end of the day, you really need these things and focus on that. And so that's, what I'm able to do. And I enjoy it. The biggest part that I actually, really love is every, about like once a year, I get a phone call from a client crying that they're so happy that they finally got what they needed to get. And, they had spent, 2 years trying to get there, begging their landlord, please put in this ramp. I can't get in. And the landlord kept pushing them aside. And then I get involved. And within 2 months, it's done.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Well, thank goodness there are people like you dealing with our types of situations. But how did you get into disability
Sure.
law specifically? A lot of people have family members or kids. What was your journey to come to disability rights?
Yeah. It started out where I was, as I said before, I was practicing on the defense side. So in the beginning of my career, I was representing all these big Fifth Avenue and Park Avenue co-op and condo corporations. And, we've all heard about, the crazy stories, but in actuality, a lot of that's true. There's a lot of big personalities, but a number of the cases that I was dealing with were, these disability rights cases. And I would go into these meetings and try to explain the law to the board of directors, and the hostility that I would receive and the lack of, like insight. For example, a lot of times where, these boards would come back and say, something, that person's not disabled. She doesn't need a reserved parking spot. I've seen her walking. And I said, really? Is this true? Like, and, I did it a lot on the defense side. And also what I saw for a big part of it was like how incompetent or how, what poor service a lot of the plaintiffs, the people who needed the work, how they really weren't being served to the fullest extent that they needed to. And that's because a lot of the lawyers didn't really quite understand the law that they were working with. And I can go into this later, but at least for New York, there's 3 levels of government, as we all know. There's the federal law, which is top, near, your state law, and then your local law, which is like your city law. But each one is very different. And for example, in New York City, the New York City law is, provides so much more protection than what the federal law does. And so, for example, you can have situations where a landlord will say something that's true under federal law, but not true under the New York City law. So that's the kind of disinformation that they're getting, and it kind of forces the disabled to sort of accept it. And, a quick example of that is under the Fair Housing Act, which is the federal law. A landlord does not have to pay for a physical modification to your apartment or the building. So let's say you needed your doors widened in the bathroom in order to get through, because, most doors, bathroom doors are kind of narrow. You generally need about 32 inches for a wheelchair to make it through a door. The landlord could say under the Fair Housing Law, the federal law, hey, you can do it, but you've got to pay for it to be done. And when you leave, you've got to bring it back to where it was beforehand. That's true under federal law, but the city law actually says, no, you, the landlord, you've got to do it and you've got to pay for it.
Wow. Now that's crazy. That seems so crazy that there are all these differences. And it just brings to mind how important it is to have somebody in your corner who is going to be fighting for this. Is this something that is, are there free lawyers, pro bono lawyers who do this work? Because I always go to, what if somebody's, underprivileged, and what if somebody does not have the money to pay someone like you? How does that work?
So that's one good thing about the law, which is at least the cases that I work on, we are able to work on a basis where the discriminator, the landlord, the employer, whoever's discriminating against you, is the one that's responsible to pay the legal fees. And that's written in the law itself.
Good.
So a disabled person many times doesn't have to pay me a dime. And I don't take that. It's not like I bill them. It's called fee shifting under the law. But the law is specifically written that if the tenant or the disabled person is successful in their lawsuit, then the other side has to pay for it completely. And and there's plenty of situations where not only does the landlord have to pay for my fees, but they also have to pay damages to the disabled person for the emotional harm that they suffered. If, let's say, they drag their feet in providing a walk-in tub or denied an emotional assistance animal for an unreasonable period of time, a number of months when the person needed it right away, that's something that they should be compensated for. So by and large, money should not be an issue to enforcing your rights. And, my advice would be that if you're going to retain an attorney, you should pretty much try to make sure that that attorney is not going to be charging you. Okay. At least and that's for a discrimination case. Because those are the areas where the law understood that the disabled community is not very wealthy. In fact, most of them are on some form of government assistance. And so how could they afford a lawyer? It's law, don't get me started on, how expensive law is and how expensive, it is to litigate. It's obscene. But, something that's not your problem as a disabled, or her family with a person with a disability, that's not something that should be in your head. That shouldn't stop you, because a lawyer should be able to take your case without taking any money from you. Okay. And once that sinks into here, you realize, oh, yeah, I can do this.
Our oyster in terms of
exactly. I should be able to do it. And part of it also is, a good lawyer will listen to you and tell you if the case is worthwhile or not. Because, where you look at it, it's got to be something where, if I lose the case, that's all on me, so, I picked my cases very carefully. And because of that, the chances of success are much higher for what I do. So next question.
My next question to you is, what do you find is the most challenging part of your work?
Okay. I think it's the kind of work I do is, I'd say writing, it varies. Like most lawyers in the very beginning are when they practice, very nervous about everything. They're nervous about going to court. They're nervous about doing a deposition, and nervous about a trial. But as you go on, you start losing that nervousness. You do it enough. But I think for me, I'm past the nervousness on any of those things. I could do, a deposition in an hour if I needed to. I just, I've done it so many times. I know the rhythm and I know what I need to go to. But I'd say the most difficult aspect has to do when I have some housing cases and somebody needs, let's say, 10 things in order, for them to fully enjoy their apartment. And the landlord will come back in and say, something, I'm only going to give you 3 right now. And if you don't take it, I'm not going to offer you anything else. And, a lot of times I'll tell them, you should hold out and wait. And sometimes they really can't. And so they'll just say, I'll take what you want, what you're accepting. And, I have to abide by what their wishes are, but it's frustrating in that I know that I can get them more, but time is not on their side. And, sometimes they need that accommodation right now, and they're willing to compromise. So that's, for me, is sad. And, it's disheartening, but, early on in my career, I had a case where it was one of my first trials, and I was really going at it. I was so gung-ho and enjoying it. And halfway through the trial, the people above me settled the case. They all did it. And I remember I was with my client, who was a famous television producer, and I'm sitting down and I'm all dejected. And I'm like, I can't believe they did it. And he looks at me and goes, son, sometimes the coach just pulls you. And I'm like, yeah. And that hit. And I'm like, okay, I can go from here, and that's the way it is, with those kind of like fair housing. Sometimes you just got to like step back and say, all right, this is it. And you've been pulled from the case. That's it. Go on.
Yeah. And the R line for that is perfect is the enemy of the good.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Right. I mean, sometimes, but then you have those people who call you once a year crying and they lift you up. So that's, you got the good and the good and the bad. So we know that you are also, in addition to your work and your family, you are involved in the Disability Pride Parade in New York City. Can you talk a little bit about your role there?
Sure. So I am also the vice president of the Disability Pride Parade in New York City. And what it is a celebration of all for the entire disabled community. So it's a parade modeled very much like any other pride parade, such as the Gay Pride Parade, or even any other kind of parade where they're having. It's not a politically motivated parade. It's something where you go out and everybody marches. And so we'll have various organizations, marching with a banner. We try to get a lot of sports groups involved, like hand cyclists will, march as a group. And, it's a wonderful day and it's really enjoyable. And I think what it does for a lot of people is it makes you feel like you're part of a community. And, many times you'll go around and you'll feel isolated. You'll feel like, that this is some area, I don't want to be in, or I don't want to draw too much attention to myself. This is a day and a place where you can feel comfortable. And that's a big thing. It really is. And it's also a place where you can meet other people going through the same kind of things that you're going through and bond. And the last thing also about it is that we also have booths at the, at where the parade ends, and there's entertainment, various people with disabilities that are giving performances, whether it be music or poetry and the like. And there'll be booths from the various New York City and New York State agencies out there that, will tell you the kind of help that you can get and the kind of services they provide. And they have pamphlets, and that is so invaluable, because it's rare to get that all in one place. But it also is the thing where you're not just getting a piece of paper. There's a person there that you can talk to and say, hey, I have this situation, can you help me?
Iris and I both attended the parade. I went to the very first parade in New York. Our family is friends with the person who founded the parade, who started the parade years ago. We still have the T-shirt from that very first year. And it's really, if you haven't been, I would even suggest coming in to New York City if you don't even live here and participate, because it is truly, it's exactly what you said. You feel like you're a part of a community, and it does give you a feeling of pride. A lot of people do feel isolated, and I just remember how meaningful it was for my whole family to go. We've been a number of times, and usually it happens in the summer, but it's later on this year, isn't it? When is
Yes.
the
So Yeah. So what happened with COVID, of course, is everybody, we've been on this big pause, and so the parade did not go forward in 2020 or 2021. And we decided that since we're restarting the parade this year, that we should make it to a month where it's not that hot. July, it was typically in the middle of July, like this past weekend, and it would be incredibly hot and difficult for a lot of people to show up. And I really, it bothered me in a sense that to hear that some people were actually deterred and said, I can't, it's not safe for me to be out like, in this kind of heat and this weather, especially in the city itself. So we decided to move it to October 2nd, and that's our date. It's, set in stone now. And yes. And the also you have to understand that if you're not from New York City, you should know that the route of the parade is probably what I consider one of the most beautiful parts of Manhattan. It starts at Madison Square Park, which is not Madison Square Garden, but Madison Square Park, which is a beautiful park on 23rd Street, and then marches from there to 14th Street. So it's only 7 blocks. And well, actually, it's a little bit less than 14th Street. It's Union Square at around 16th Street. And it goes Union Square Park, which is another beautiful park area. And it's a great location to even just shop around and just walk around the neighborhood, because the architecture is beautiful and there's so many interesting stores there and the like. So I would just recommend it, if you're for a sightseeing day too, because it's a nice add-on. But at the same time, it's a beautiful, it's not a hard march, in that you're going to be going too far. You feel like you're going too far. It's just long enough to make it enjoyable and short enough that you're finally at your destination. You can take a break, and there are so many good restaurants around there too. I can recommend.
And I love that people, just like in any other parade, if you remember, Iris, people are on the sidewalks screaming and clapping for the people who are in the parade. And it's, how often do people applaud people with disabilities and their floats? I mean, it's really, it's not like a pity thing. It's like, yeah, you go. It's a really beautiful day. And I'm glad that it's not a summer, because it has been very hot every time we've gone, like crazy hot.
So yes, we heard that from the community. That was the big thing that we heard from the community, that the July parade was always too hot. And we took that into consideration and said, something, let's really, let's try October. And I think October 2nd is generally beautiful in Manhattan. So the gods should be looking down on us, and it should be all good. But yeah, I highly recommend it for everyone to show up. You can go on the website, or you can contact me if you have any questions about the parade, or if you have part of a group, you can march as a group. It just needs to be registered in advance. But the more the merrier, and it's really such a day of acceptance and such a day of happiness, as I like to say.
Yeah, and the New York City Parade inspired us to start one in Montclair. So now we have an annual Montclair Disability Pride Parade. So it's, a few of these exist, and we're trying to, it'd be great if every city, every town had one. Iris, will you be starting one in Midland, Michigan?
Definitely on my to-do list. High on my to-do list. I'm actually going to mention it today in my event. And I think that what the both of you said is so true. It's so empowering to be in a celebration day like that you feel that you're a part of a larger community, that you can meet other parents and other adults with disabilities that are advocates. And it's important also to know what's available around. And by meeting other people, you see other pieces of equipment that might be relevant to your child. You can chit chat with other people and learn a lot about challenges that other families are dealing with, and it helps you in your journey. I think my kids that attended a few times loved the day and loved the event. And when we were once abroad, when the Pride Parade, Disability Pride Parade was on, they were like very disappointed that we're missing out on it. So definitely a worthy event. Glenn, before we kind of end our conversation today, I have a final question for you. I think, Alma, maybe you have another one afterwards, but what is your recommendation for parents? How would you encourage parents to be better advocate for their children with disabilities? I know you have a lot of experience, and what can the average parents do to kind of excel in that field?
You know, I think it's, some people use this term. I don't know, I'm sure all of us have heard of the term networking, but I like to think about it, as to applying for parents, is that talk to other people, talk to everyone, because you'd be surprised what other people know or who they know and how they can help you. I also would say that, for anybody's situation, a lot of times you may think that there's only one option available to you, but if you ultimately search around and you find a professional to help you or some organization to help you, they'll show you another 5 options you'd never considered about, and those can be very helpful. There's, at least in the New York City area, there's the independent living centers. There's BCID in Brooklyn. There's Sydney CIDNY in Manhattan. I mean, you can find these organizations if you do a simple web search. Try to get involved with a community for wherever you are, and get the advice of that community, because the larger you make your community, the better you're going to serve your family. And that's something that I've they say knowledge is power, and yes, Google is good, but it can take you down paths that are just rabbit holes. It's best to get real advice from real people dealing with the same situation. So find a support group. I know Alma has something like that she does, and that is so invaluable, because that's exactly what I'm talking about. You go to one of those kind of meetings that Alma has, and you have the group, and somebody's going to have an idea there or something that they're going to mention that you're going to say, wow, that's great, I could use that too, and that would help me. So the biggest thing is, don't do this alone. Okay, there's resources out there to help you. In this day and age, there are groups, and you can find, even if you're in some isolated community, you can find some group on the internet that can help you.
We have one.
Exactly.
We have a Two Moms No. We have one here, specific to our area, but we have a Two Moms No Fluff disability parenting kids with disability support group online on Facebook. So anybody in the world can be in our group and ask questions about where they live. And we just, I love what you're saying, because it's something that we are just constantly trying to instill in everyone, that community is really the most important thing for emotional support and for practical support. There's more power in numbers. It's the hive mind, where everybody contributes something that they've learned along their path that they can share with other people. And we always say, you don't know what you don't know. And if you have someone there who's had even a somewhat similar situation, you're going to learn something that you didn't know existed. And we're all going to move policy if there are a lot of us working together. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that as like the number one thing to really.
Yeah, I couldn't stress it more. And Alma, and I know just before I was talking about getting information, but you struck Alma, you said something that kind of hit me, which is, I think, the emotional part about it too, for people.
Yes.
To feel that they're not alone in the struggle, and to have somebody that they can share their feelings with, that's somebody that's actually going to understand what they're saying. It's not going to be somebody that you talk to that's not living it. So you're living it, and if you are with other people that are living it, it's going to make you emotionally feel a lot better and charge you up to tackle whatever issues you have.
Yeah, and that is such a key point. And we always talk about, like, you have to put your oxygen mask on first, and having the emotional stability and comfort. Your situation is going to allow us to be more focused and be able to get the services that we need for our kids. If we're not, I love what you said early on about your objective. You are in this you have the objectivity, so you don't have the hostility or the pain that the families have. So you can oftentimes have a clearer mind to do what you need to do, because you don't have all the, it's a proven fact that if you're so caught up in your emotions, you cannot think straight. Like, it's really hard. So we as parents have to calm ourselves, and people who have disabilities, we really have to brace ourselves for IEP meetings and going in for the fight. And I'm sure you have to do that as well, but not as much if you're not living it. So it's so important to have people who get it and be able to move forward from a calmer, I'm not going to ever say calm, but a calmer place. So thank you for doing the work that you're doing. If people want to contact you, we're going to be, we'll post, the episode on social media, but right here, can people reach out to you if they have a question?
Sure, absolutely.
What's your contact?
Yeah, so the best way to contact me is by email. Okay. So my email address is GHP, that's Glen Howard Parker, at parkerhanski.com. That's PARKERHANSKI.com. And, just shoot me an email, and I can generally be able to respond fairly quickly and point you in the right direction.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Iris, anything else you have for?
No, I just want to thank you again for your time and the information you shared with us and our listeners today. That was really important, and I am grateful to you doing the work that you do and helping the disability community one person at a time. Thank you.
And we're so lucky we have him in Montclair, New Jersey.
Well, I could be anywhere right now, and so that's the way it is. But really, thank you guys for doing this, for, reaching out to people and, making their voice heard and making them feel like, it's not just them. So you guys just do something wonderful, and I'm happy to be part of the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, if anybody has any comments about things that they've dealt with disability rights, please put it in the comments on our Facebook, Instagram page, and we will see you next week. Thanks for being here.
Take care.
Bye.
For more information, please go to www.twomomsnofluff.com. Thank you.
If you like this podcast, please subscribe and give it a 5-star rating so more people can hear it. Thank you.